I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Johnny Smith.
And this is On the Other Side of Things, the Smith & Sniff spin-off in which we answer your questions. Yes, it's another Otosot for a Friday, answering your questions.
Sounds like a house robot from Robot Wars.
Otolot.
Sir Otolot. It would be
Sir Otolot.
Versus Sir Otosot. Go, no, I'm the one that says On That Side of Things. No, I am. Right, that's it. We're going to biff one another.
Smash each other with chisels. Rich Long is a listener who sent us a question. He sent us some pictures, in fact, which is entitled, "This is my beloved shitbox."
I bloody love pictures.
It is a MG ZS.
Okay.
The facelifted one. It's a saloon.
Yes.
04 plate, so it's quite a
late
one
car
as well. But his question is, why doesn't anybody ever talk about them? Is it because they were made in England? I've owned it for 9 years now. Do you prefer the Mark 1 or Mark 2? My one drives so smoothly. I know it's just a Rover, but I bloody love it.
Well, I love
why
that
doesn't
he
anyone
loves
talk
it.
about them? Yeah,
I love anyone that really loves a car and is properly into it, especially in a lesser known, rare but nobody cares type of thing. So well done for a start, for keeping the legend alive, as it were. Yeah,
it's a funny one, isn't it? Because they were way better than the sum of their parts. They were genuinely, of those MG Z cars, I remember when they came out, that the ZR was really good fun in a sort of little kind of scrappy, hot hatchy sort of way.
Youth market way.
The ZT was impressive because it felt sort of quite grown up, but with a kind of raggedy side. Particularly the early ones had quite a hard ride, and you really had to rev that engine, and then they sort of softened things off a little bit, but they still had a good spirit. But in terms of pure driving pleasure and handling, the ZS was the best of the three.
It was. It really was. Is it the least loved? Is it the least collectible?
That's what I'm wondering.
Now? So ultimately, it's probably going to be the rarest if it isn't already.
Yeah.
The saloon.
Now, Rich's car as well, I should say, has got the body kit on it. Remember on those facelifted ones?
Yeah.
They did a body kit which was standard, I think, on the 180, the V6 one. I can't tell if Rich is a V6, and he doesn't say. You could have it as an option on other models, and it got the big wing on the boot lid, wheel arch extensions, sort of fake grills on the front wings, and those arch extensions particularly, and they do give it a bit more attitude. It looks good in a sort of, fugly, mutated old Honda kind of way. I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, I think the pre-facelift cars look like the Rover 75 pre-facelift of the MG ZT. I think it looked better than the latter one, but that's just me.
Yes, yeah,
that's just me.
Actually, I think the facelifted ZS looked better. I thought the front end was a bit more cohesive.
Yeah.
Just a bit neater. Yeah. Particularly considering what they were working with. They were doing their best. The budget for those facelifts was bugger all, and they had to sort of try and make them look fresh for an indeterminate amount of time. Now, I'm just on Auto Trader trying to see what ZSs are going for these days. There aren't any.
There aren't any?
There aren't any on Auto Trader at the moment. There are 5 ZRs, but it's showing like the ZS isn't showing up. So they really are rare, but nobody cares.
They are rare, but maybe they're the ultimate rare, but nobody cares.
Well, this is because I was wondering if I'm going to go on to Car and Classic and see. Yes, okay, there's someone here. So you could have a pre-facelift 2003 MG ZS 180, so the V6 one, 96,000 miles.
Yeah.
Someone's got one here and they're asking £2,700 for it. So they're not dirt cheap.
That isn't dirt cheap, but then cars aren't at the moment, or they certainly weren't because of COVID's back.
Yeah, so, fair enough. There's a post-facelift V6 with 57,000 miles on it for 4.5.
Really?
So maybe people have cottoned on a bit, because that's quite punchy money for a 20-year-old.
Yeah, that really is.
Oh, now, well, you'll like this one.
Okay.
Because the 4.5 grand one It's deceased spec.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it's not fantastic that somebody's deceased, but you know what I mean.
No. The description is quite minimalist, a little light on detail. It says, this was bought, parked and driven once to test drive. It drove lovely, but has since been parked on a drive and not driven due to the death of the owner.
So the owner bought it, drove it once and then died?
Yeah, it says bought as an investment. Oh. Seats, a mixture of leather and cloth, so won't get hot in the sun. I would have not put that in at the expense of, I don't know, service history and stuff like that.
No, I just want to know about the condition of it, really, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hatch. I prefer the saloon myself, but, just from a looks point of view. But it looks very tidy. In fairness, there are some pictures of paperwork in the photos which show its MOT history and stuff. Anyway, there we go. So maybe people have cottoned on, because 4.5 one of those is quite strong.
It is. You've got to want
they
one.
are ace.
I like that he has one and has kept it for nearly a decade, and I don't have a problem with them. I've always, as I said to you, I've always fancied a MG ZT or even a Rover 75 Estate. But I've never owned one. Maybe I will one day. Maybe a V8 one. Maybe you and I will collab and buy one on a timeshare. Who knows? Yeah,
I think they're going for quite strong money now, because they are. You either want one or you don't kind of car, aren't they?
Very much. It's the elasticated waistband TVR, isn't it? It's I kind of like it.
A listener called Dibs asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how genuine was Johnny's recent Astra GTE barn find episode?
How genuine was it?
Yes, he says there was something about it that felt a bit planted. Not on Johnny's part, I hasten to add. How do you assess whether it will be a genuine dig-out discovery and not just an excuse to get lots of eyeballs on a vehicle that's to be sold with an interested audience?
Well, as it gets more popular, we have had people contacting us to say we've got this, but we definitely do want to sell it. So, and I don't mind that as long as they're transparent about it. If the car is interesting enough or the story is good enough, I'm okay with that. This GTE was unusual in so much as I knew it had been moved from the place it had sat because the house had been sold because of a deceased previous owner. But the people that had inherited it, Joe and his wife, they paid to have it transported professionally to their garage and pretty much just pushed it straight into the garage. And because neither of them knew much about cars, they genuinely didn't realise how good a condition it was in. And I think they wanted me to give an honest opinion of, like, is this worth us keeping and kind of putting back on the road, or is it just a silly idea? And by the end of the day, I think they saw my enthusiasm when I saw how well it had been preserved. And actually, I've had an email from them last night saying, thank you so much for the video. The feedback has been amazing. We've decided we're definitely going to do our uncle proud, and we're going to get the car. We want to get the car professionally detailed and recommissioned, and we're going to use it and keep it in the family, which I'm really pleased about.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's really good, because I think although they didn't realise, they thought it was quite cool, and obviously it had a family sentiment, they didn't realise how well preserved it was. So that's good. But yeah, good. I don't do recce's on barn finds. People think I do, and the truth of it is I don't have the time to go and look at it, and then, like we do in the TV world, like if this was a Top Gear thing or a Grand Tour thing, then you do a recce. But I don't have the time. I just see some pictures, I have a phone call, and I just go with my gut normally. And the gut's normally all right. On that side of things. Yeah, so, yeah. I've got a question from a chap called David Stafford. I think he might be a Patreon, so thanks, David. Johnny, what's your favourite old, of course, in brackets, Top Gear episode or segment, and why? And Richard, what is your favourite Fifth Gear segment / episode and why? Bonus point to Richard for a favourite Late Break Show video. The obvious follow-up, it certainly seems very self-congratulatory. The obvious follow-up occurred to be doing work in the garden, which of your respective work, looking back, is your favourite. The obvious follow-up occurred to be doing work in the garden.
Oh, I guess he had a thought of a follow-up question while doing work in the garden.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like. So my favourite Top Gear episode or segment and why? God, because I had a quick flick through the back catalogue of Clarkson, Hammond and May era Top Gear, and it's absolutely, I forgot how many episodes you guys did for a start.
Yeah.
There's so many, like 70s mid-engine supercars for less than 10 grand. You're like, that was great fun.
Yeah.
You look back now and you go...
It's also a snapshot of history because you just can't buy those cars for that little money anymore.
No, you can't. No. I really enjoyed the amphibious vehicles. There was 2 episodes, I think, of the amphibious vehicles.
Yeah.
And I thought that was not just genuinely dangerous, but also good fun.
I absolutely would not have done that. It's one of those things where you forget that an underrated quality that those 3 had was they were very brave.
Yeah.
Because, there was safety boats and there were, all the measures in place that could possibly be put in place. I think there were divers on the safety boats that could go in, if it all was a bit tasty.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I would not, if I had been on Hammond's VW camper van on a very choppy English channel, have gone below deck into the interior as he did.
No.
Because it looked like that thing was going to go over any minute, and you wouldn't want to be inside, which had stuff in it as well. It had a kitchenette and whatever.
Yeah.
And
and a running engine. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're trying to get out of this thing, and it must be very disorientating if something goes down like that, and you don't know which way's up. And then you've got a fucking kettle floating into your face, or your leg gets wrapped around the flex for a microwave or something.
No, I wouldn't want... I'd have to have goggles or mask if I was going to do that.
Oh, God.
Because I don't like the idea of opening my eyes underwater. I find that annoying.
There's a lot that I just felt like there's no way I would have done that. But yeah, they were very plucky in situations.
They were a standout. I remember, when you see something like a video or a written piece or some music, and you wish, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd had that idea. That's fantastic. The Indestructible Hilux was that for me. I remember watching those episodes, and they were quite a long time ago. I mean, they're probably 20 years ago now.
Yes, I think so.
They're probably getting on for 20 years. I thought, what a genius idea. I mean, strapping the poor thing down to it was Western Supermare, I think, and then the tide coming in and sort of claiming it, and then the tide going out, and then the AA man trying to resurrect it.
He was actually, he wasn't. He was Lexus man.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, he is, or was, the guy who, if you had a problem with your Lexus and the dealer was struggling to fix it, he was the guy they parachuted in.
Oh, he was
like the top
Lexus whisperer.
Lexus tech. Yeah, basically. The top Lexus tech in the whole of Britain, and was essentially a wizard. I don't know how he did. But then, in fairness, he didn't have...
We've all met wizards.
Access to a workshop. He had a basic box of tools and a lot of WD-40.
Yes.
And he just a very, very talented mechanic, and that's how he got that thing going. But also, it's just the fact that it was a remarkable piece of engineering and it seemed to be unkillable.
It was. It was.
Yeah, that was Jeremy's idea originally. He just went, those Hiluxes, they're indestructible. Or are they? Let's find out. And back in those days, that was sort of, we were still quite early doors. We hadn't done a lot of stuff. So there were a lot of things.
You demolished the block of flats with it on the top, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the follow-up film that James did.
Yeah.
And yes, we put it on top of a tower block and
that was incredible.
It got dynamited. Yes, and then it drove into the studio.
Yeah. You've still... it still exists somewhere, right, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know where it's gone now, because it was on the plinth in the studio. I think it's probably down at the Bewley Car Museum, where a lot of old Top Gear stuff goes.
If I was sort of like Chris Evans' wealth spec, I would just try and buy that at all costs. It's a sort of car which... It's more of a sculpture or a symbol than anything else. I would try and buy it and go, yeah.
Yeah, it always looked good in the studio because it sort of lit nicely, and it just sort of loomed in the back of shot as one of those kind of most recognisable vehicles off the show. Funny enough, I had to go to B&Q near Bristol a couple of days ago.
Of course you did.
There was a very similar Hilux, not quite as old, but same sort of colour. and it was I would say, early 90s one. Or maybe late 90s. But in the car park there, in really tidy condition. And I did have a sort of flashback. I was like, bloody hell, look, there's a proper indestructible spec Hilux.
Okay.
I know actually in later years Toyota introduced didn't they call it there was an indestructible trim level?
Invincible? Was it Invincible?
Oh, Invincible. I was going to say
X.
Indestructible. Indestructible would be quite a punchy trim level. You'd legally speaking, you'd have to defend that. But yes, it was Invincible, wasn't it? That was the trim level.
I've heard a couple of people saying that the irony is that since they've introduced the Invincible spec, and of course the Hilux has been modernised, it's not actually as good. It's not actually as strong.
I've heard
because it's a more complicated beast, right?
Yeah, exactly. Favourite fifth gear films?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know any of them?
Yeah, well, I was going to say the one that immediately came to my mind when you asked this question was: do you remember when you and Tom Ford took those Bedford Rascals or Suzuki Carries, whatever they were, drifting?
Yeah, it was Bedford Rascals.
And Wookie broke his foot.
Yes, I do. Yeah, he had a van and I had a pickup Rascal.
Yes. His van was... Did he have an A-Team van?
Which he called the A-Tom van.
Did you also have frowny eyes?
Yeah, I had a bad boy eye conversion, and I think I put a rear bumper from a Mark 6 Escort on the front, and it actually looked really good. I remember just...
I don't remember that bit. Was it not far too wide?
Yeah, it was, but we used wood screws and bent it round, so it was like a sort of dodgem. It actually, considering it was a stupid last minute thing, I actually stood back and went, that kind of looks all right. Okay, that was enormous fun. Enormous fun.
Yeah, I remember that film being very funny. But then Wookie broke his foot, and I seem to remember you weren't incredibly sympathetic on camera.
I was genuinely concerned, but I just did the wrong thing in the moment, and I went to hold it or touch it, and I don't know why I did that. It's a bit like telling kids not to put the fingers in fire, and I just did it. And he did. He quite badly hurt himself, and I had to sort of go and see him in hospital and stuff. But yeah, but the item was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Yes. It's really hard. It's still one of the hardest cars I've ever tried to drift, actually.
Well, I'm not surprised.
There's just
the other one
power.
that I remember from fifth gear, because in the department of, that's a good idea, was didn't you try and drive a Lada Niva across Britain without using roads?
Yeah, we decided to try and champion green laning because we thought it might be a dying... not a dying art, but like a dying permission. And we tried to get across from one coast to the other coast using certainly no A roads, tried to use no B roads, but mostly lanes. Yeah, like byways or whatever you call them. And we did genuinely do it. We didn't fake it, and it was a lot of fun. Because I got to... What was the coast where Dracula used to hang around? Whitby. That's where we ended up. We got to Whitby just before dusk, just before dark. And the storm was coming in. It was really moody. And that actually cemented my complete admiration and the charm of the Niva. In fact, I wish I'd bought that car, that exact car. I could have bought it.
It was a white one, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah, white or sort of light beige. Yeah.
It was definitely one of those films where I kind of went, oh, this is a really good idea. We should have done this. And then it's too late. So
you could think someone could do that again. Maybe we should do it. Should we do it on the Late Break Show?
What, just drive across Britain without using roads?
Yeah, we should try and green lane our way across.
Did you? I can't remember. Did you do it in the spot you did it in because it's sort of one of the narrower parts of Britain? I guess it must be.
And do you want to know the reason why we did that?
Go on.
Because we didn't have the time or the budget to do a wider part of Britain. That's the only reason.
That's a decent reason. I mean, if you did it lower down, you've got all of Wales and then East Anglia to get across. Do it in skinny bit of Britain. And makes more sense. It's still quite wide.
The producers of the show were like, look, you're going to have to be really selective about where you do this. Go for the thinnest waistline, please. So we did. I got a letter from a chap called Aidan Bliss. Now, Aidan, this is actually, I think this is a really hard question, on the spot, certainly. Is there one car that you've ever reviewed and hated/disliked, but you like it now?
Ooh.
I know there is. But I've been trying. I mean, it's been probably hundreds of cars in the last 20. I've been in this game, Rich, for 25 years, and you've probably been in the game longer.
Funnily enough, the MG ZT that we mentioned earlier was sort of in that category, only in as much as I booked to borrow one, a press car, when they were new, and it was supposed to be delivered on a Friday.
Yeah.
And then I was going away for the weekend in it with my then girlfriend. And on the Friday afternoon, this cheery Brummie man arrived on my doorstep and he went, "Mr. Porter?" And I said, "Yes." He went, "Here to pick up the car." And I said, I haven't got a car for you to pick up. I thought you were bringing me a car. Bring it? No, I've come down on the train. I said, but you're supposed to be delivering an MG ZT. That, oh, well, that's the problem, isn't it? And I was like, well, it kind of isn't. I was sort of, looking forward to going away this weekend and stuff. Hold on a minute. So he started trying to ring people at Longbridge, but it's Friday afternoon. Everyone at Longbridge has gone home.
What did he do?
He managed to get hold of somebody, but he went, "Well, the car's in there, but I'm going to go back to Birmingham now. But the problem is, they might have locked up, and they can't promise me that it'll be out there because they can't move it. So I'm going to go back there now." And I was doing and he got the train back to Birmingham, and then at about, I don't know, I think it was probably sort of 8 o'clock on Friday evening,
he got it back.
He arrived again at my flat, this time with the car, and he'd managed to get it. Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. He had to do a bit of sweet talking to really get him to open the gate. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Well done him.
Well done him, yeah. And then I was able to go away. But at this point, it was getting a bit late, and we had quite a long drive up north to do. It was only when we were passing Birmingham, I suddenly thought, oh, shit, I could have given that guy a lift back to the Midlands because poor bloke, he's getting on another train back to Birmingham. But yeah, it was late. I was tired. I think it was a bit of a shitty, wet, dark night. And I just had miles to do. And I just wasn't enjoying the ZT at all. It felt really sort of heavy and a bit lumpen. And I just thought, oh, this is crap. I'd rather be in a Rover 75 or anything else. I think they've ruined this car. And then the next day, we got to where we were going. And the next morning, I made some excuse to go and, fetch some milk or something. I got to drive it down some quite nice roads and suddenly went, oh, right, no, this is brilliant. I like this. And it was all okay again. So that was a very fast turnaround from I don't like this to I like it. And I think that sometimes happens.
It does happen.
You kind of, initially, for whatever reason, you're not quite in the groove with it. And once you find that groove, you can sort of enjoy what's good about it.
I'm going to have to come back to you, Aidan. I'm really sorry, because there are cars, but there's a lot of cars which I was expecting that were going to be substandard, kind of like crap, and then you get a pleasant surprise. There's been quite a few of those. I think one of them was, I remember the Suzuki FX4 or SX4. What was it called?
Oh, SX4, yes.
SX4. I was thinking this is just going to be drab and rubbish. And I actually really enjoyed it. But it's a car that nobody ever talks about and probably nobody cares about. But I actually thought, that's all right. Can't like this. It's got something going on. Got time for it.
I was with TV's Jeremy Clarkson a couple of weeks ago, and he was raving about the Mazda 3. In fact, I think his review's been out in the Sunday Times. Just a car that arrived, he had no expectation of whatsoever, and actually it's a really, really nice car. Just does everything you need. It's not annoying.
Mazda and Suzuki are those brands, though. I know we're off-piece slightly.
Yes, they are.
But they quietly just do a solid, good car that's often better than the cars it's based on. And
yes.
They don't blow their trombone about it. Suzuki doesn't blow its trombone about anything. It's a shame, really, because what's the little thing with the tapered roof that looks like the Whiz Kid? That thing's brilliant.
Oh, the Ignis.
It's a great car. It's such a good car. It's like one of the best cars of that segment you can buy right now. Love it.
Anyone who's watched the new series of Clarkson's Farm might have noticed that it features the guy who used to be in Groove Armada. Well, I think he actually still is.
Really?
Who is a neighbouring farmer, but he's into this very natural, old-school farming and sort of persuading Jeremy to give it a go. him and George Lamb, who used to be on the radio. And the scene in one of the early episodes where they turn up, they arrive in an Ignis.
It's because they know what they're doing. Is it an Ignis four-wheel drive?
Well, I wondered that. Yeah, I don't know, but they're great. There's one lives near here, a black one.
Yeah, they're great.
It's a really nice-looking little car, isn't it? And that rear wheel, the way that it sort of sits, like they've pushed the track out, but then the bodywork follows it lower down.
That's right.
It's really neat.
It's a good bit of design, and they're good quality. Anyway, that's not answering Aidan's question at all. Sorry, Aidan.
No, I know what you mean. There's I feel like there are other ones that I would say mostly, though, that when you review cars and you've driven a lot of cars, you sort of get your eye in a little bit, and your instincts generally, things don't change. If you feel like something is a bit crap or not right, it's probably never going to be, unless the manufacturer does something to it.
Yeah.
There's a car that I reviewed and didn't really like. In fact, I didn't like at all. Was the last BMW M3, which was widely panned. And I first drove it, I think, on an Evo Car of the Year, and with some of the steely-eyed helmsmen from Evo, and we all went, "There's something not right about that car." In fact, we thought it was that specific car and that it was wrong in some way.
Oh, really?
It turns out they were all like that. BMW subsequently fiddled with the chassis settings and stuff like that. It got better and better apparently, and then there was the competition and stuff, and that was really good. I've never driven that, but even those early ones, I remember thinking it was actually properly disappointingly poor in a number of ways. But I still see them around and go, that's a nice looking car. So it's not quite answering Aidan's question, because I know that an early one would be cack to drive. The power delivery was all wrong. It sort of felt really heavy and lumpy. And worst of all, you just didn't know what it was going to do handling-wise, particularly in the wet. It was really sort of odd and unpredictable.
It's very un-BMW.
Yeah. I don't know how they got it so wrong, but I think they knew they had, because they did sort it out, apparently. So I was even told that there might have been some sorting out that wasn't even announced. They just did a bit of fiddling before an official facelift to try and calm it down a bit.
Well, I'm going to do a quick final letter from a chap called Rory, who signs his letter off by saying "Quest on." I like that. We've never said that. Eagle Quest crew in the building. Dearest Smith and Sniff, I'm working in a restaurant at the moment with a 10-hour playlist, and it contains Ralph McTell's seminal love song "Streets of London." Obviously, I mutter "leafy fucking London" under my breath when it plays 4 to 5 times a week. This has led me to explain this unhinged podcast of yours to my colleagues on several occasions. Otosot, what is the most old money car you'd like to see on the fucking leafy streets of Primrose Hill?
Ooh.
Quest on, Rory.
Quest on is lovely. Thanks, Rory.
Thanks for listening, Rory. Now, good question. What's the most old money car you'd like to see on the fucking leafy streets of London, Primrose Hill? The most old money.
Do you know what? One of those Alvises from the 60s would be a lovely thing to see. Slightly patinated, but you know that they keep it in mechanically good order.
You see, I think I had 3 Alvises at one time. There was a moment where they really weren't worth an enormous amount, but of course, those who knew it was a wonderful motor car. I used one purely for the dogs. I used one purely. One was the dog vehicle. One was for just going on holiday. We only used that one on a holiday. Of course, the battery was always flat.
Yes.
It's okay. The other one I used for fetching, I think it was bread and cigarettes with, and that was a delightful car. Delightful car.
Because that was all I needed, you see, in those days. I used to just live on bread and cigarettes and wine and cigarettes.
Simpler time, lovely time.
And then 19 of us would pile into the Alvis and head down to the south of France. Oh, yes, no seatbelts in those days. It was a different time, you see, and of course we all horribly perished in an accident on an autoroute.
But how we laughed afterwards, of course, when we were.
Oh, how we laughed, because of course I'd had so much wine, my body was like a rag doll, and I was simply flung into the nearest village, where thankfully there was a lovely tabac. I ordered myself a hearty glass of something red, and phoned home to have another Elvis sent over.
I too was flung out of the vehicle, and then I thought I was dead. And then I woke up and I was in a spongy bush, and I pressed my torso and went, you're not dead. So I woke up and then I walked into the nearest village, and a lovely lady gave me some paella. And I thought, this is wonderful. And then, unfortunately, some of the people who were flung from the vehicle were dead.
But we all laughed about it afterwards. Well, they didn't, because they were dead. My friend Betsy brought me round with a single cigarette and some intravenous Chateauneuf de Pape, and we were back on the road. Different times. The 60s.
I'm trying to think of the most old money Primrose Hill leafy car right now that you could just see right now.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's in a way, like a Rolls Royce or a Bentley is a bit too flash.
It's too obvious.
A Bristol as well. You would say it's probably about
Bristol
there.
Bristol is extremely old.
But I think that the Elvis for me is that
Elvis Old Money is almost a character's name.
But also, I think just a Volvo 245.
Yes. I saw one yesterday.
With incredibly matte paint.
I saw one yesterday in a really expensive postcode in London, WC1. And
oh, really?
And down a very, very well-heeled street. And it was a 245 in red, and it turned out to be a GLT.
Oh.
But it was very faded. Like the roof and the bonnet were pretty much pink.
Of course.
But I just looked at it and went, that's been here since it was 2 years old.
Oh, God, yeah.
And the cost to park that on this street and keep it maintained is probably silly. But somebody just goes, it's fine.
Yeah.
I only drive it once a week.
We just can't think what to replace it with, and it still works perfectly well. And that's old money.
It is old money. Half of me wonders about a Saab 9000, because you don't see them anymore. They've all gone. And
that would be nice.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? A CD. Saab 9000 CD, so not a Carlson, necessarily.
Oh, no.
And it's street parked, and it's slightly algal, in fact, because it's never really... it's only cleaned during the MOT once a year. But it's on the button, it's still got full service history.
Of course. Yes, from Britain's one remaining Saab dealer.
Yes, it is. So it costs them a fortune to keep it alive, but they don't care, because it's a lovely motor car. It's still got very plush seats, and it does look a little algal, but that's okay. So maybe that answers your question, Roy.
I think so. All right, well, that's another episode of Otosot done over, as it were. We'll do it all again next Friday. Normal episode, as usual, this Monday. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Bye, please.
On the other side of things. On the other side of things. On the other side of things. On the other side of things.
Let me take you by the hand and dodge the guy on the pavement with a no-name full suspension mountain bike. He's smoking Cutter's Choice. He's swearing at the world.
Let me buy you a bag of cans and lead you through the streets of London.